turn it up.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Thank you, Renata, for this lovely words, introduction. And I would like to say welcome to you all, and thank you so much for coming. It's wonderful that you're here to share with us this celebrate the lives of our parents and their contribution to this community. I'm quite overcome. It's very moving for me to be here, and I think for all, Danielle as well, for both of us and for all our families. So, my dad, Nachman Gryfenberg. When I was very little, my dad was the most exciting person in my world. My earliest memories of his workroom in our small apartment in Brussels. That was the biggest and brightest room where he spent his days cutting up leather skins to be sewn into gloves. And where he was teaching his trade to two handsome young apprentices, Jacques and Henri. My greatest treat was to be allowed into the workroom, where I'd pick up all the small bits of leather from the floor, and the apprentices would make a fuss at me, until I became a nuisance, and then they would sit me on top of the cupboard. My dad, always full of life, with his great love of music, he would sing to the classical music on the radio, jump around and conduct, and in between sing lots of Yiddish songs that were not on the radio. The apprentices too loved music, and there was a lot of lively argument going on about what was actually playing on the radio. I remember Dad skipping home along the street with me. The music seemed to live in him, and I think it would have helped him at many difficult times in his life. It has certainly been a great gift to Danielle and me. Dad had very little schooling. He lost his father when he was about 12 years old, and from then on he had to work. But all his life, he was determined to keep learning, and he did. He was truly self-educated. Firstly, literature, Yiddish literature, of course, and then anything European that was translated into French. When I was reading French classics at school, they had already read them in Yiddish years before. There was a Bundesgroup, youth group, Zukunft, of which he was a member, and they put on classes on many night classes on many subjects, and he attended those. Then, when he came to live in Brussels, he learned French very well, and he could read, and he read a lot of French literature then. Many years later, again, he was already in his 40s when we migrated to Australia, and he once again learnt another language. Migrating is hard work. For at least 2 years, at first he struggled to find a new way of making a living. Gloves wasn't so great. But he would get home from a hard day's work and rush down the street to the local primary school to an English class. My father was also, all his life, very enterprising. He was an excellent tradesman at his leather glove making in Warsaw, but in the late 1920s, things were very bad economically, and he couldn't get work. So then he heard that his trade was very good in Belgium, and as a newlywed to my mother Rywka, in 1929, he went to Brussels, not knowing the language, of course. My mother joined him there the following year. By the time the war broke out, Dad was doing very well, and he moved his factory to separate premises. That was a step up. During the war, we were separated and in hiding. My mother had a false ID card, and she risked going about with it. She was taking money to different Jewish people who were in great need. The money, I think, came from America. But Dad didn't have a false ID card, and he looked very foreign, and there was no way he could go out. So he had to find things to occupy himself. Among others, he experimented with making bread. What he made was a lot better than what we could buy for the coupons. His greatest success, I remember, was a strawberry tart for some special occasion. Well, if it sounds like fun, of course it wasn't, but he was doing all these things. When I came home after the war, after 2 years, to live with all together again with my parents and Danielle, I was old enough then, I was 10, over 10, to begin to see another side of my father. He was an idealist, always preoccupied with great social and political issues. Socialism provided values of social justice, equality, the brotherhood of man. I could understand this, and I was fascinated and excited. I remember in 1948, my father telling me, full of wonder, about an American man called Gary Davis, who was an international peace activist. And he had interrupted a session of the United Nations General Assembly, tore up his passport, and called himself a world citizen, saying that world citizenship would achieve real peace. I was impressed. Could this really mean the end of wars? And of course, I then discovered the Bund, the Yiddish workers' movement that my father had joined in Poland, and where he met my mother, Rywka. While Dad worked hard to begin making a living again, which he hadn't done for 2 years, his evenings were taken up with many committee meetings. This was where his heart really was. Other things to do with the household or even with children were just outside his sphere. One day my mother took me to hospital to have my tonsils out, and Danielle just came along because she was little and she came along for the ride. And in those days it was very fashionable. It was thought to be a good thing to have your tonsils out. So next thing we knew, she was having hers out too. And then we put to bed for a few hours. And I think Mum was greatly shocked. And she called Dad, and he came, and he looked baffled and perplexed. What could he do? It wasn't his field. He had always been very enterprising. When his glove making didn't take off after the war, he went into an import-export business with some American Jews. And they were bringing in some wonderful products we'd never heard of and we'd never seen. Once again, when he came to Australia, he found that leather gloves were not really in great demand. And for a couple of years, he was trying all sorts of things. After struggling for 2 years, and with a lot of help from Mum, because she already knew how to sew, he learned to make patterns for skirts and slacks and built up a clothing business of all things. He was well in his 40s. During those years I worked with them and marveled at his confidence and his perseverance. And all the while, he continued his involvement in communal organizations. The Bund, the Kadimah, the Jewish Welfare Society, as it was then, more perhaps than anything, the Yiddish Sunday School. This was where his greatest dream lay. He was deeply concerned about Jewish continuity, Kiyum and Hemshach. For him, Yiddish carried the important Jewish values and it gave access, of course, to the rich Yiddish culture that he so loved. From this, it was only a step to his greatest dream, a Yiddish day school. Many were skeptical about establishing another Jewish day school. There were already quite a few. But in spite of this, with faith, determination, hard work, and generous donations, he inspired others to support him, and he brought his dream to fruition. In the process, he traveled to conferences around the world. He was very sociable, formed new connections and friendships easily. Above all, he met like-minded people who appreciated and were impressed by what he was doing. He had plenty of tributes, as you will hear later. This is the only Yiddish day school in the world. This was the only way it would be possible for Jewish children to learn the Yiddish language. Sholem Aleichem College to this day is a wonderful primary school where children learn Yiddish every day and enjoy it. It is both a wonderful legacy and tribute to my father's memory.